Hi everyone, welcome to Writer's Corner. I'm Radrani and I'm from Tilsley Creative Writers. In my recent videos, I've been reading chapters from this book, Lessons from the Ramayana by Sri Chawal Satchidanamurti. And in my last video, I read lesson 16, and that was the last lesson or chapter in this book. And to finish off, in this video, I'll be reading the final conclusion, and I hope you like it. So, here we go. Conclusion. Reflections on Bhakti, devotion. Jnanam, wisdom. Vairagyam, detachment. God has created man. There is a ray of godliness in every man. Man feels himself incomplete without realizing God. He who turns towards God and works for realization of God is inspired by three principles. They are devotion, wisdom, and detachment. As a matter of fact, these do not exist independent of one another. These three go as a team. Sometimes in a particular context, one may appear most. Then the other two lie in the background, supporting the one which is uppermost on the surface. When the gurus question Prahalada why he always chants the name of God, neglecting everything else, he gives a wonderful reply embodying the principle of devotion. He says, "Revered gurus, what shall I say? A magnet attracts iron. Iron filings cling to the magnet, drawn by it with tremendous force. Similar is the force exerted on me by the Lord of my heart. I cannot help being drawn to him. It is God's will. None can defy God's will. A thirsty man cannot be stopped from having water. A hungry man cannot be restrained from rushing to eat food. So, in devotion, a devotee loses himself to the outside world and he always thinks of God, always chants the holy name and always serves him. In the Ramayana, the greatest devotee is Hanuman. His devotion takes the form of active service also. Not only does he give his mind unto the thoughts of Rama and his heart to the love of Rama, he also gives his body to the service of Rama. Along with this devotion, he has wisdom and detachment too. In his case, devotion is uppermost and visible. Wisdom, Jnanam, consists in knowing that God is all-pervading, all-knowing, and all-powerful. Detachment, Vairagyam, consists in freeing oneself of the bondage with the attractions and temptations of this world, which are illusory. Hanuman remains a bachelor and he has no worldly attachments. We call him a great sannyasi, one who has renounced worldly attachments and pleasures. Greatness lies in renunciation, but not in acquisition of material riches. He who gives himself up to what is greater than himself and dedicates himself to the service of humanity of God, or God, is really praiseworthy. Thus, when we look at a devotee, we find the other two, wisdom and detachment, in the background. Hanuman is ahead of all others in devotion. Whenever he hears the sweet name of Rama, he stands in ecstasy, shedding tears, with his hands folded, head bent, and his frame thrilling. This figure of Hanuman in prayerful mood inspires the readers of the Ramayana with devotion. Jnanam, wisdom, makes one identify oneself with soul or God. When a person questions himself, "Who am I?" the answer should be that he is soul or God. That is the height to be attained. But a common man identifies himself with his body, the psychophysical mechanism in flesh and blood. He may intellectually comprehend that he is soul, but the ingrained habit makes himself think that he is body. Hence, by constant service through his body to fellow human beings or God, he may gradually rise to the height that he is soul. A person in his devotional fervour feels that God has given him this body for a good purpose. As he plucks flowers and puts them at the feet of God by way of worship, rapture moves him. Then he congratulates himself that his hands are not in vain. As he goes to the temple and does pradakshina, rounds, he with a thrill exclaims, Oh, blessed are my legs. As he chants slokas, hymns, in praise of God, joy wells up in his heart, and in a choked voice he says to himself, Oh, my tongue has its purpose fulfilled. Hanuman and Garuda are the noble examples for devotees whose want is to please the Lord by service. Lakshmana also devotes himself to the service of Rama. Here his devotion is marked by relationship. Rama is his own brother. Hence, his devotion is like Arjuna's devotion to Lord Krishna, which is seasoned by kinship. The Lord himself often makes a fuss of relationship and confuses the devotee into doubting his divinity. But devotees like Hanuman and Arjuna stand the test or trial and completely surrender themselves to the Lord of their heart. Rama gives in to grief and behaves like an ordinary human being on finding Sita missing from the cottage. Then it is Lakshmana's turn to comfort Rama and instill hope and courage in him. Rama regains his composure with the gentle words of the devotee Lakshmana. Lakshmana does not lose sight of the fact that Rama is divinity incarnate. That is why he is steadfast in his devotion. The two brothers teach the ordinary mortals the lesson. Be kind to a man who is in trouble, and be courageous in your own trouble. Though devotion is uppermost in Lakshmana, he impresses us with his wisdom and detachment too. We see how he has renounced his wife, riches, and royal pleasures to accompany his God and serve him. His devotion is well flanked by wisdom and detachment, Vairagyam. A man who is successful in life attributes his success to his merit and prudence. He does not think of God and his grace. But when misfortunes visit him and when his well-thought plans miscarry, he begins to think of divinity. If goodness leads him not, weariness may toss him to my heart. God sometimes deliberately creates troubles to a man to make him turn to him. In prosperity, he may forget God, but in adversity, he remembers God and cries for help. When all sources of help are exhausted, a man may turn to God. When all is done, learn this, my son, not friend nor skill, nor wit and will, nor ship nor cloud, but only God doth all in all. To some, devotion has at its bottom desire for relief. They seek refuge in God to get relief from some pain, agony, or misery. Sugriva seeks Rama's grace. His purpose is to regain his wife and riches. Rama elevates his friendship. It appears as if they forge friendship for mutual benefit. But really, it is arti, bhakti, devotion inspired by desire for relief, on the part of Sugriva. Sugriva's association with Hanuman has made it possible for him to taste the pleasure of devotion to the Lord. Arti bhakti may waver after the much sought for relief is obtained. Such a thing has happened in the case of Sugriva as he absorbs himself in revelry. Here, too, his association with the great devotee Hanuman saves him betimes. Sugriva soon becomes steady in his devotion and serves Rama with all his being. Similar is the case with Vibhishana too. Vibhishana is subjected to tyranny, so he takes refuge in Rama. He surrenders himself to Rama. He fortifies himself in self-surrender, Purna Saranagati. But here too, Rama elevates Vibhishana's taking refuge in him to seeking friendship with him. He crowns Vibhishana king of Lanka and treats him as a friend. So for all appearances, the Arti Bhakti of Vibhishana or Sugriva is Sakhya Bhakti, devotion based on friendship. Sometimes fear may turn a person a devotee. Maricha tastes Rama's valor. During the yaga of Vishwamitra, Rama shoots an arrow at Maricha and throws him into the sea many miles away. He has seen Rama and his captivating beauty enthralls him. Wherever he turns his eyes, he sees only the young boy of 16 with a bow in his hand. To him it is a frightening beauty. He is spared by Rama 2 times. This surprises him very much. He feels that Rama wishes him to be a rishi devoted to him. Maricha gives up his cruel ways and lives in an ashram, ever thinking on the terrific beauty of Rama. The wonder is, Rama's beauty both terrifies and delights. That is devotion inspired by fear. The familiar example for this fear leading to devotion is Kamsa in the Bhagavatam. He sees Lord Krishna wherever he casts his glances. He sees Krishna in the food he takes, on the bed he sleeps on, and in everything he touches. This constant remembering of Lord Krishna softens his heart and makes him eligible for mukti, liberation. Similarly, the constant fear of Rama makes Maricha see Rama everywhere and prepares him for mukti, and he finally succumbs to the terrible shaft of Rama. While fighting with Kara and Dushana and their huge army single-handed, Rama charms them with his all-pervading brilliance. Each Rakshasa finds Rama by his side and sees Rama in his fellow Rakshasa. This miracle terrifies them into devotion, which enables them to attain liberation. That is why those who die at the hands of Rama are blessed with moksha. The principle of bhakti is that a person always thinks of God. His mind is fully haunted by thoughts of God. This ceaseless thinking of God may be due to love, or sometimes it may be due to inveterate hatred too. Thoughts arising out of hatred will be more intense. For example, Ravana and Kumbhakarna cherish deep-rooted enmity for Rama, and for them not a moment passes without either uttering Rama's name or seeing in their mind's eye the figure of Rama. This type of bhakti is called Sambhrama Yoga. Ravana and Kumbhakarna are originally Jaya and Vijaya. They are the gatekeepers of Lord Vishnu, near and dear to God. One day the divine sages, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Sanat Kumara go to Vaikunta to have a look at Lord Vishnu and worship him. The 2 doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, stop them from entering the sanctum. The rishis are first amused, and in the next moment they yield to anger. They say to the gatekeepers, "Evidently you think high of yourselves, and the pride in being near and close to Lord Vishnu has blinded you to the worth of the visitors. Being close to Lord ought to have made you soft, humble and mellow. But it is a wonder how you have fallen a prey to pride. Anyway, it is better for you to suffer punishment for this misdemeanor. Here is our curse. You will be born on earth as Rakshasas, in whom the evils like lust, anger, greed, infatuation, pride and malice predominate." The 2 gatekeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, fall at the feet of the divine rishis and beg them to withdraw their curse. As Jaya and Vijaya are penitent, the rishis relent and they limit their curse to only 3 janmas, period extending from birth to death. Then Lord Vishnu appears and says to the rishis, O divine sages, I am not angry with you for the curse you pronounced on my devotees. You are also my devotees. I do not like to falsify your curse. They will be born on earth. In the first Janma, they will be Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. In that Janma, Krodha, anger, propels them to their doom. In the second Janma, they will be born as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Here, Kama, lust, is the evil that predominates and causes their downfall. In the third Janma, they will be born as Sishupala and Dantavarka. In that Janma, mother, pride, predominates and brings about their fall. In all these Janmas, they hate me with inordinate hatred. Here, Jaya and Vijaya fall at the feet of Lord Vishnu and submit thus. Lord, how is it possible for us, your humble and devoted servants, to whom you are all in all, to hate you? The very idea is repulsive and repugnant to our ears. We cannot entertain in our heart hatred for you. Lord, we cannot hate you. Please save us. Then the Lord explains thus. If you want to reach me through devotion, it'll take for you 7 janmas. If you adopt hatred as the means of remembering me, 3 janmas will do to reach me and regain your original position in Vaikuntha. That hatred which makes you ever think of me is also a tapas. Hatred is a strong feeling which makes you restless till you crush your enemy or be crushed by him. In your deep-rooted hatred, you restlessly picture me as pouncing on you and victimizing you. The more restless you are, the deeper will be the thought of meeting me in fight. In your heart you have me, your object of hatred. On your tongue you have my name, the name of the one you hate. Does it not amount to tapas? Jaya and Vijaya prostrate themselves before Lord Vishnu and wet his feet with their tears. God assures them that he will also be born on earth to liberate them and vanishes from there. The rishis are so charmed by the bewitching beauty of Rama that they yield to kama, desire or lust. Rama promises that he would fulfill their desire in the Krishna avataram. As Krishna, the Lord Almighty, sports the gopis, who are the rishis reborn as beautiful damsels. We understand how kama may also be a strong force in bhakti. The bhakti of the gopis is animated by kama. Great sages like Sukha are transported with joy at the very mention of the Madhura Bhakti, devotion animated by love or desire of the gopis. In their desire for the embrace of the Lord, they renounce everything earthly and they are lost in devotion to him. Their eyes see only Lord Krishna. Their ears hear only the songs about Krishna. Their tongue utters only the name of Krishna. In their heart there is only the image of Krishna. To them nothing exists which does not glorify Krishna. That Madhura Bhakti is a crowning glory and reward for long years of penance. Narada explains to Dharmaraja the various types of devotion. The first is the sweet devotion of the gopis who long for the Lord's embrace. Their kama, desire or lust, makes them great devotees. The object of their kama is Lord Krishna. Blessed are those gopis who immerse their ego in the eternal, and their bliss is unparalleled. The second type of devotion is that which is inspired by fear. Kamsa is an example of this. The third type of devotion is that which arises out of hatred and enmity. We have seen the examples of Ravana, Shishupala, and so on. The fourth type of devotion is that which is inspired by bonds of love and relationship. There is that bond of kinship which adds to the love and devotion. The Pandavas love Sri Krishna and their love transcends to divine level. Whenever they think of Krishna, he appears before them. He is their mentor, friend, philosopher, and guide. Where there is love, there the mind dwells. Drawn by their love, Lord Krishna acts as a charioteer to Arjuna and sports the name Parthasarathi. In the Ramayana, Dasharatha's devotion is inspired by love, parental love. He loves Rama to distraction. He is not able to live without Rama. He is attached to Rama just as a father attaches himself to his dear son. This earthly instinct or emotion transcends to devotion and a great tapas to attain divinity. The simple reason is the object of attachment or love is Rama. The fifth type of devotion is that which is inspired by Jnanam or natural attraction to the Lord. Just as iron is attracted by magnets, so also a devotee attracted by the Lord. The classic examples for this type of devotion are Prahlada and Narada. Narada himself tells Dharmaraja that his attachment to Lord Krishna is inspired by Bhakti. In this context, Bhakti means spontaneous pull towards God without any expectation of reward. This type of devotion is free from any material tinge and it is bent on only spiritual bliss. The Lord says that he is indebted to devotees of this type. These devotees worship him and spend their whole time in serving and praising him. In return for these services, they do not seek any reward. Complete desirelessness characterizes their practice of devotion. The dust of the feet of such devotees sanctifies the world. How to develop devotion? Devotion to God is the panacea for all the human ills. Study of sacred books, company of saints and devotees, and practice of virtues are some of the ways leading to devotion. Devotion becomes steady and rewarding when one is able to fix one's mind on God. The mind is fickle. It runs to all sorts of pursuits. It needs spiritual discipline to cure the mind of its fickleness and bind it to the feet of the Lord. Devotion manifests itself in 9 ways. In other words, we can practice 9 ways to develop devotion. The first is Sravanam, hearing. Even an illiterate man can have opportunities of hearing songs, discourses, stories, and exploits of Lord Rama or Krishna. These stories sound sweet to the ear. Constant hearing of these stories, songs, eulogies, and so on creates taste for hearing further. King Parikshit hears Bhagavatam from Saint Sukha continuously for 7 days and attains liberation, moksha. The second is Kirtanam, singing of the glories of God. As a person hears with interest the songs and stories of Lord Rama or Krishna, he feels inclined to chant them himself. He sits alone and chants the holy name. He finds joy in eulogizing the virtues of Rama. The divine sage Narada has one distinction in chanting the holy name. His melodious songs in praise of God are divinely surcharged with the sweetness of devotion, surcharged not to satiety, but to insatiable desire to hear more and more. The third is Padasevanam, washing the feet of God. A devotee falls at the feet of God and washes his feet. Brahma washed the feet of Lord Vishnu and worshipped him during the Vamanavatara, birth as Vamana. Sevanam implies humbleness before God. That humbleness is a result of immerging his ego in the feet of the God. Sevanam takes the form of serving the Lord in a selfless way. Guha washes the feet of Lord Rama and does humble service. The fourth is Smarana. It means meditation on God. After hearing about God and after chanting the holy name, a devotee feels like sitting alone in meditation. He internally becomes ripe enough to keep the image of God in his heart and concentrate on it. He dwells upon the virtues of Lord and enjoys rapport with him. With all he has heard and what all he has chanted, like a flood of nectar inundates his mind during Smarana. What Sita does sitting under a tree in the Ashoka garden is Smarana. The fifth is Archana, worship. A devotee sits before the idol and worships it with flowers and perfumes. He offers fruits and sweets as offerings, Vairagyam. He adopts a procedure in the Archana. In the temple, the priests do Archana and give prasadam to the devotees that gather there. During Archana, a devotee engages his mind, eyes, hands, and body. With the whole of his being, he serves God in a dedicated way. The saints follow a regular procedure of worship and attain a blessed state through worship. They put into practice the principle that this human body, though frail and brittle, is the best suited to attain liberation, moksha, through worship, service, and archana. The sixth is Vandanam, saluting. A devotee sees God in everything and every person. So he will always be saluting with folded hands. Vandanam implies great reverence. The worshippers of God, Surya, repeatedly prostrate themselves and say prayers. That is like physical drill or exercise to the body, limbs and muscles. Here, the principle is the whole body must be used in the worship of God. Under the leadership of Hanuman, all the Vanaras do worship through Vandanam. By this means of Vandanam, they have grown inordinately strong and capable. The seventh is Dasyam. It means devoted service like a servant. Hanuman excels everyone else in Dasya Bhakti. Devotion expressed through service to humanity pleases God most. Through Dasya Bhakti, one gradually grows to great heights of bliss and glory. The best way of being cured of identification with the body is Dasya Bhakti. Through selfless service to God, ego melts away and the devotee can attain Brahman. The feeling that I am Brahman cannot be attained by sudden flight. Dasya Bhakti is a stepping stone and a springboard. The eighth is Sakhyam. It means friendship. God descends on earth in human form with a twofold purpose. One is to put an end to the wicked. The other is to shower his grace on the pious and the good. His devotees will have an opportunity to go near him, do service to him, pray to him, worship him, and even enjoy his company in a friendly spirit. Arjuna is the best example for one who enjoys this Sakhya Bhakti. His devotion is marked by kinship, which has flowered into friendship. In his descent as Rama, Vibhishana and Sugriva attain to the level of Sakhya devotion to him. Rama conceals his divinity and gives scope for Sugriva and Vibhishana to offer their suggestions. The ninth is Atmanivedam. It means complete self-surrender. It implies an awareness that God ensouls the whole universe and an individual soul finds fulfillment only when he immerses himself with God. He completely surrenders himself to God and in this self-surrender feels bliss. The end and aim of life is to become one with God. These 9 forms are not clear-cut separations. A devotee worth the name practices all the 9 forms of devotion. In a particular context, a particular form may appear to be very impressive and gratifying. When a devotee surrenders himself to God within, he begins to experience that peace of mind which is normally elusive. Jnanam, wisdom. Wisdom is a heavenly fruit. Its sweetness is devotion. Its detachment to the world of desires is Vairagya. A devotee is an architect of happiness and joy and desires, and decorated by gems of wisdom that man is not the body but the soul, which is ever blissful. Our ancient rishis have been helping mankind sunk in ignorance with their message of wisdom that God is all pervasive and resides in every person, that one must realize one's identity with Brahman. Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba once happened to address some students. In his address, he said, "Often your teachers test your general knowledge by asking you questions like, 'Who is the President of America?' and so on. But did it ever strike you to ask yourself, 'Who am I?' The answer to this question brings one all the wisdom, Jnanam, one needs. Man mistakenly thinks that he is the body, but he is really the soul inside the body. That soul is God. This question leads one to Brahmajnanam. I am Brahma. The body is perishable and mortal. The soul is ever blissful and immortal. One has to identify oneself with the soul and enjoy spiritual bliss. One of the questions that Dharmaraja is asked by Yaksha is, "What is the greatest wonder?" Dharmaraja says in reply thus, "Every day man sees many die around him, and it is also within his experience how his old kith and kin are dead and gone, and yet he behaves as if he won't die. This is the greatest wonder. There is a reason why man behaves as if he is not going to die. Intellectually, he may accept the fact that he will die one day or another. But some imperceptible force from within appears to assure him that he is above death. It appears as if the feeling that he is the immortal soul steals over him quite unaware. By study and by hearing learned discourses, one may acquire knowledge about God and the relationship of individual soul to God. He may thus have intellectual grasp over the subject, but the knowledge he has so acquired may elude his grasp during trying circumstances. What is required is the information he gathers must bring about transformation in him. It is not enough if one knows about Jnanam, but he must be a Jnani, sage. One may pass examinations and acquire a degree in philosophy without becoming a philosopher. Jnanam is a nourishing fruit. The mere possession of it may not be of much use. You find its uses only when you eat it and assimilate it. He whose mind is loaded with matter pertaining to man's relationship with God and rules of realizing God may pass for a wise man by playing the braggart. In this context, we can quote the words of C.C. Colton. There is a difference between happiness and wisdom. He that thinks himself the happiest man really is so. But he that thinks himself the wisest is generally the greatest fool. So a Jnani is revealed more by his example than by his precept. Janaka in the Ramayana shows his wisdom by his example. His mind is settled in the enjoyment of the truth that God pervades everywhere, and every happening on this earth is his divine Leela, play. Yet he does his normal duties as ruler without losing his composure, poise and bliss. A jnani may not run away from his duties. In fact, he does his duties far better than an ordinary man. The simple reason is that joys and sorrows of this world do not upset his balance. Richard Cumberland says thus: "Extremes of fortune are true wisdom's test, and he is of men most wise who bears them best." In the Ramayana, the great rishis who glow with wisdom are the beacon lights to us, showing the path leading to bliss, love, and harmony. Wisdom first preaches what is right. Next, it perfects itself by practicing what it preaches. It is expressive not only in words, but also in deeds. A wise man gently speaks. A wicked man may not heed his advice. We have observed how Ravana and his followers turn a deaf ear to the advice of the wise. Only the good and virtuous are benefited by the advice of the wise. The cruel and the wicked, bent on gratification, care little for the soft, gentle voice of wisdom. Wisdom dawns on a man with divine grace. Mere human efforts without God's grace does not make a man wise beyond mere accumulation of knowledge or information. Wisdom ripens and mellows with devotion. Vairagyam, detachment. It is not acquisition, but renunciation that makes a man famous. People remember not those who have amassed immense wealth, but those who have given up their all for the good of humanity. Mere instinct may prompt a person to own heaps of gold and glittering riches. But such persons sink in oblivion soon after death, and not a stone tells us where they are. Those who have sacrificed their all for the sake of a principle or to be of help to the fellow human beings will live forever even after their death. Had Buddha not renounced his kingdom and riches, he would have been one of the innumerable forgotten kings who had strutted and fretted their hour and were heard no more. Can anything real be ever gained without sacrifice of some kind? The nature of love is to sacrifice. Sacrifice starts with mother. Give an apple to a mother. She denies herself the pleasure of eating it herself. She cuts it and feeds her child. A man's growth has its roots in the sacrifice of the mother. She willingly and lovingly sacrifices her comfort, her leisure, and her everything, only to see her child good, happy, and prosperous. The world is the richer for the sacrifices made by several people in several walks of life. What is the reward of sacrifice? The reward of a good thing well done is to have done it. Sacrifice ceases to be sacrifice if it is done with an eye on reward. Perhaps gods may be pleased. That itself is the reward. The more a man denies himself, so much the more will be received from the gods, says Horace. The spirit of sacrifice and service has its roots in detachment. Man undergoes pain and suffering because of his attachment to riches and to those who are near and dear to him. How can he attain this detachment from the things of this world? The simple answer is he has to attach himself to God. He who finds a greater treasure and grabs it detaches himself from the lesser one. As man reflects on the transitoriness and mortal nature of worldly pleasures and riches, he naturally seeks something immortal and everlasting. All pleasures sicken, all glories sink. He understands that it is not worth his while to waste his human birth in momentary pleasures. He renounces worldly things. pleasures, riches, in pursuit of divinity and spiritual bliss. This renunciation of worldly riches is called Vairagya. Ye were not formed to live the life of brutes, but virtue to pursue and knowledge high. By Dante. A man who is attached to his wealth and dear ones and thinks that everything comes next to self-gratification cannot pursue virtue or knowledge high. In vain is human birth if one does not try to attain perfection in virtue and knowledge. Those who feel that the life of a householder is a hindrance to the pursuit of virtue and knowledge embrace sannyasa, complete renunciation. But a slight reflection reveals to us that even the householder can be detached to the fruit of his actions and pursue virtue and knowledge. He can be mentally a Vairagya, one who has renounced the world, and yet do his duties as a householder. Sannyasam, renunciation, is not merely running away from the world and household. It is only soaring high with a view to extending spiritual help to the erring humanity. What are the causes that give rise to Vairagyam in man? Siddhartha for the first time sees an old man, a disease-stricken man, and dead man one after another. He reflects on the inevitable human misery. He questions himself. Will I also suffer from old age and disease? Will I also die? What is the way to escape these ills that flesh is heir to? These questions lead him to the renunciation of worldly pleasures, which are not really pleasures but only a mirage of pleasures. Beauty is brittle. Human frame is frail. Pleasures are productive of pain. Riches are fleeting. Power is precarious. It may be a fall from a precipice. Youth flies, age ravages, disease afflicts. Death snatches a man at any time. Hence, where is the joy worth the name? A man eats. He thinks eating is a joy. It is not a joy. It is simply a palliative to the pain of hunger. All animal joys and creature comforts that man craves for are really palliatives but not joys, positive. Read a good book. It fills you with pleasure. It is aesthetic pleasure. Help a poor man. The visible joy in his face at relief fills you with pleasure. Pleasure, ethical, commune yourself with the universal self. You get pleasure and it is spiritual pleasure. Those who voluntarily give up attachment to worldly pleasures akin to human body do so only when they gradually cultivate taste for higher pleasures, aesthetic, ethical and spiritual. Abjuration without aversion does not last long. Only a person who is disgusted with the ills in worldly life can think of Vairagya. Age, ache, penury, disease, and slavery may make one loathe worldly life. If on that account he becomes a sannyasi, he runs the risk of returning to the household when loneliness, homesickness, and agony greet the half-baked sannyasi. Internal ripeness, maturity, mellowness are slow results of constant and vigorous practice of righteousness. Sannyasam without proper ripeness may result in rottenness. Only a ripe coconut fully developed after years of careful storing becomes a detached kernel removable from the shell. Vairagya is not real Vairagya if it contains only loathing for the bitterness of life or eternal cares of household. It must also contain a longing for the realization of higher values, divinity or God. Then, slowly by divine grace, he becomes a Vairagi and an evolved soul. In the Ramayana, we have seen a good number of noble characters who are completely detached from the pleasures of this world. We admire them and get inspired by them. The weariest and most loathed worldly life becomes the sweetest and happiest if we imbibe the lessons from the Ramayana and mould our lives accordingly. To those moved by faith and devotional fervour, the Ramayana is a veritable wish-yielding tree, Kalpavruksha. To those who pride themselves on their powers of rational thinking, it is a tale told by a saint full of heroism and love, signifying service, sacrifice, and morality. The end. That completes the book. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the lessons as much as I've enjoyed reading them. And please click like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope to see you in my future videos. Thank you. Bye.